Hey TV fans, Bored now back with you, and today I'm going to be talking about Pluribus episode 6 of the first season. It is called HDP. Full spoilers from the start of this review as always, so I'm playing catch up a little bit on this show. And just to warn you, there might be a bit of a gap between me doing this one and episode 7 because I am going away for Christmas and I'm not sure what sort of access I'll have to Apple TV over the holidays, so it might be a bit tricky to fit the next one in. But I know there's only a few more left, so I'll have to have a bit of a catch up when I get back. But just a warning and just to say things have been a little bit hectic, so that's why I've been a bit slow getting to this, and because of the holidays there may be a bit of a break. But yeah, I'm going to get into my thoughts because I think this is a really good episode and one of the best episodes so far of this show. It's, even though I quite liked episode 5 and there were things that I enjoyed about it, I would say I like this one more. Like, this one was a little bit more punchy and exciting and had some unexpected things in it, because Carol going off to Las Vegas to revisit this other character and just all the fallout from what she finds in the factory and how she now has this newfound determination and she has something she can use to prove what's happening back in town and why she's right to want to change things leads to some fun stuff. The new setting of Las Vegas for this episode is a nice little backdrop as well, very well filmed, and just to see Vegas so sparse because there's no one there except them is really good stuff. But the opening scene of this episode was really well filmed as well, and I almost thought of it as like a found footage type scene, but it played out very differently, like a different kind of found footage scene. Because you have the initial shock of when she finds what we learn is human remains. And then it's quite clever how we then see the reveal of what it is through her eyes and how she's literally filming it a bit, as I said, found footage style for the audience and for the people on the other end of the video, who she later finds out have been seeing her recordings, even though she didn't know that for sure and was worried that the other life forms were restricting that and didn't want the people to see it. So that is confirmed and they have been seeing it. But yeah, this was a really smart way to reveal this stuff in quite a tense little scene. So it gives her a new purpose, and ultimately in the episode Carol learns then they've been doing things that way with like the human remains because of environmental reasons, and also because of the lack of options to feed the human race now, because of resources running low and because of the lack of people around to help run things, and it's all to do with like environmental and like science type thing, where one of the big gags and big points in the episode is about how it would be like the equivalent of, it was either they either use that to give them like the subsistence, or it would be more like you just eat nothing but apples. So you get the punchline about Carol just like shouting, hey, why not give them an apple? And that's good because it's something which is very funny, but it's also, it's a point for Carol really in like the argument stakes of things, because I think most people would agree that, okay, it probably does suck to have to eat apples, nothing but apples, but these are extreme circumstances, and if needs must, then you just put up with it and get on with it. And we get the brilliant John Cena cameo, which was a totally what the fuck moment. Like when we were watching it, me and my mum both did a double take. But it has to be cameo of the month at least. I think because of his personality and like the way he delivers lines, and he's got this sort of all-American type thing, quite a big, tall, robotic sort of guy. Then I think John Cena just works, but I was pretty blown away. They must have paid a lot for this cameo, and Apple have a lot of money, so I think maybe Vince Gilliam went to them and said, hey, can we try and get John Cena, because I think he would be perfect for this scene, when he's doing like this promotional video and explaining exactly what's going on and how they use this substance stuff. Yeah, it's an amazing cameo, I can't deny. And one thing I'll say about John Cena, and this is very on topic because he's been in the headlines a lot recently, just because recently he had his last ever wrestling match, or what he's claiming is his last ever match. And chances are it may well be, because I know he's not in the best of conditions when it comes to like performing. But in any case, because of that, he's in the public eye a lot. But one thing I will give him credit for, like no matter what you think of John Cena as a talent and what you think of him as a personality, he definitely does like to send himself up. Like he's not afraid to like play with his macho image and his like Americano. He's not afraid to like poke fun of that. So I think that's always to be applauded, and we've seen that in some of his film roles, and we see that in this episode. And yeah, it's just brilliant. Like, first of all, I was just amazed and they got him, and second of all, I just thought, yeah, that cameo works. It just does. So that was really good stuff. And just Carol's reaction, and of course within the show, like within the story, it's not John Cena because they're just using his body. And it's so funny, like her line later, like Rhea Seehorn is really great in this episode, like her reactions to everything, and how desperate she gets to try and make the Vegas guy understand it's not John Cena, she screams at some point. And yeah, he doesn't really care. Like, to him, that's not the point. But there's some really good, slow, stylish direction as we see her slowly go into Vegas. And we even get like a James Bond style casino scene with the South American guy who's like the playboy type character, and he's got all the girls around him, and we get just a slow motion, stylish, slick, like casino type scene, and it's fine. You don't complain. It's like, okay, maybe should this be in this sort of a show, but you don't really second guess it. It's just a fun little quirky scene, and there's a couple of like nice character touches that sort of make it quite funny, and because you know the context of it, it works as well. And he basically beats the guy who's got the record for that game, and he's the other guy is kind of like, you'll pay for this one day. I'll beat you next time. And he's like, well, maybe, but not today. And he goes off with the girls. And of course, the way it plays is that when Carol gets there, it's like she's portrayed as a little bit of a killjoy, because that's the reason they have to disappear, like literally the girls, because there's a visitor here and Carol is there to talk business. But the big reveal in some ways, apart from what they were doing with like the human, I forget what the HDP stands for, but the human remains anyway, is then he already knows, like because Carol thinks she's got the big gotcha, and when she starts explaining like, do you know what they've been doing? And then he's like, well, is this about the human remains and what have you? And that's when he reveals that he's been seeing the videos and what she's been saying. And another thing I like about that opening scene when she's filming what she's found is part of what this show is playing with, I think, is about how sometimes things can be manipulated online, and you can be the whole fake news thing in a way, and things can so easily be like taken out of context or like misconstrued or whatever. And I think what I thought was going to happen is then Carol was going to come off based on that videotape as a big like ranting maniac, and that's from their point of view. And also I think the way it came across and the point it was making partly is that nowadays, even if you have what appears to be like ironclad evidence, then people who are that way inclined and they're on board with what they're being told and the system and what have you, and a certain like politician, if you want to put it in a real context, then they're just going to be so stubborn, and they're just not going to see, and they're going to see a conspiracy theory in there. They're going to see that, well, maybe she's just manipulating us, trying to, maybe she set that all up, staged it herself. And they didn't quite go there, but you could definitely read it as it's poking into that, where it's like on the videotape, because she is literally frantic. Like at this point she is getting desperate, because apart from one character who I'll get to in a minute, like she does seem to be on her own with this stuff and fighting it on her own. And once again, the show has done a good job of like the back and forth, and certain moments making Carol look a bit too paranoid and a bit too like cynical, and like sometimes there are arguments that are valid against her, but definitely there's a lot that goes the other way. And the beauty of the show is you can kind of choose what side you come down on. But yeah, I mean, the stuff in Vegas was very well done. There's some nice character stuff between Carol and the guy. I forget his name now, Dietus, something like that. But there's some nice stuff when they have breakfast. That was a nice little scene, and they do have a little bit of a mutual bonding thing, even though ultimately like he agrees to differ with her. Like he just says, well, the way they explained it, then that makes sense to me. Like that seems like a productive way to run things. And like, yeah, so nothing's really getting through when it comes to what she's saying and what she portrayed it. And it's just this great twist, and ultimately he already knew about this stuff, and he just doesn't care. He just doesn't see it as a bad thing in the way Carol does. So all the stuff in Vegas, I think, was a lot of fun and very interesting. And what we build to at the end is that we return to the character in, I think it's Paraguay, who we saw in a previous episode, and Carol had the frosty conversation on the phone with, and he's the one who is the other one who's on Carol's side, like has the same viewpoint as she does. And this guy definitely, I think, has the potential to be a character who is a long-term character. Like I could see him appearing in season 2, for example. Or it could be then in the end, maybe if something goes wrong and something happens to him because of what him and Carol get up to, then that could be something that is a bit of a shocking revelation for Carol and makes her question things and how she's acting, perhaps. But this is a very good end scene where we see him actually watching the videotape that or the recording that Carol made. Videotape, so old-fashioned, but he's watching what he watches the recording, and he decides, yeah, it's time to go and join her. It's time to start planning with her and working together to try and solve this. And you get this really haunting image at the end there before he leaves, because he packs up and gets in his car. We see him, because again everything's deserted and he has access to the houses. We see him go into someone's house to get supplies. Obviously he's as a rebellion, he's like not been feeding himself properly. That's why he's kind of been nicking different supplies from other places, and like Carol, he's kind of decided to steer clear of what they're offering up. So the very end is then he's confronted by the image of his mother, his late mother, but of course it's not. They're using her body, and that was a really good bit of direction, like just the silhouette of her in the background. And because you couldn't see her face at first and she was talking in this very like monotone sort of voice, I think that made it quite eerie. But yeah, she's being used to try and manipulate him and try and like convince him. Then we know you're hungry is the words, you know, why don't you come back with us, or why don't you let us feed you? And there's a nice little reveal in here where he says, "You're not my mother was a bitch," and just a small little way and quite a natural way to reveal that he didn't have much of a relationship with his mother, and maybe that's something of a regret of his. But also you could say then it makes it easier for him to not bother, like not be that affected by this, whereas other people might be taken in, even though they can see it's not, or know it's not their relatives, and they might still be taken in the moment because of what they represent. But yeah, maybe that's the point, and this guy is a bit detached from things and isn't going to be drawn in. But that also makes it quite sad because of who his mother was, and it seems that based on what he said, they didn't have much of a relationship. And I mean, I don't know if I want to speculate that she abused him, but certainly then if you go by what he says, she didn't treat him very well and wasn't much of a mother. That's his point of view, of course, but yeah, that was a nice little reveal, a moment at the end, and it was quite an effective scene. And he says, "Stay away from me," and he drives off, and that's like the setup for the next episode. So things are moving along nicely at this point, because as I said, last week's was a little bit of a weaker episode. I think if this one is up there for episode of the season, last week probably was the weakest episode. So this one does get things back on track, I think. Some intriguing moments and developments and some fun character stuff as well. You know, I think it was nice Carol having someone else to play off, and we're going to see that a bit more now with this other character. So I'm interested to see how they work together as a team. So that's Pluribus episode 6. Thanks for listening, guys. Let me know what you think of the episode in the comments, like where you think the direction is going and what you think of the show overall. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media. If you want to support the channel monetarily, you can do on patreon.com/borednow, or you can be a channel member at 3 different tiers. You can also hit the hype button on YouTube, or you can make a one-off donation at my PayPal account or as a super chat, and that helps out the channel just a little bit monetarily and helps keep these reviews coming. But lots more TV movie reviews on the way. But thanks everyone, take care, see you soon, bye.